Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Saddleback webinar this week. I'm Liz Mangus, Literacy Specialist with Saddleback Educational Publishing. We're back. We had to miss last week because of some crazy weather, but we will be rescheduling that webinar, and we're back this week, and we're ready to bring you a great session. So as you are jumping on here, just as we begin every webinar, a quick reminder of how you can interact with us today. On your control bar, which is at the bottom of your web browser window, you will find a chat and a Q&A icon. And those are the two things you need to know. So for chat, that's how you're going to talk to not only us and our presenter, but also to your fellow attendees. And we want to keep the conversation and that interaction going. So please be sure that when you chat, it's a funny little thing that Zoom does, but when you chat, you have to select all panelists and attendees before you hit send on that chat in order for everybody to see what it is you have to say. So you'll hear me reminding you of this a few times throughout our session today. When you're chatting, please choose all panelists and attendees to ensure that everybody can see what it is you have to say. Also, as you are jumping on today, please know that the Q&A area is where we really prefer your questions go. If you put them in the chat, we'll find them, we'll get to them. But if you put them in the question area, we can get to them a little bit more efficiently, and we will take some time at the end to address questions today. The chat area is also where you will find links to handouts, links, resources, certificates of attendance, and that sort of thing. We'll be putting links in there periodically. So we'll get started right at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Always, always, always want to remind you of how you can find and interact with us on Twitter. We have Susan Patterson presenting with us today. You might know her from social media as ELL Lady. Her name is Susan. She doesn't actually go by ELL Lady in real life, disappointingly. I think that would be kind of fun, but she prefers Susan. Can't blame her. But this is where you can find both Susan and Saddleback on Twitter. Let everybody know that you are here and joining us for this great topic today. Speaking of Susan, let's bring her in. She's joining us from Tennessee today. How are you, Susan?
I'm great. I am great. I'm so happy to see all these people coming in the chat.
Yeah, everybody is, I think there's a lot of excitement for this session. I think minimizing teacher talk and getting students more engaged is a concern that everybody, well, it's a concern all the time, but especially in this virtual setup that so many of us have. So we're excited for the information you're going to share with us today. Let me open up the chat here and see who's who. Okay, remember, as you are jumping in and letting us know where you're signing in from, please choose all panelists and attendees. All panelists and attendees. So we've got Virginia and New York, Pennsylvania, Houston, Sacramento. Welcome, everybody. Isabel, yes, you are all muted. Wendy, yes, I will send you an email. It's liz@sdlback.com, but I will go ahead and put that in the chat for you. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Tim from California. All right, excellent. So good to see everybody. Don't forget, put all panelists and attendees in the chat. When you type in the chat, there's a little drop down there, select all panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see who is here. Emily from Ohio, thank you for joining us. Now, we had some pretty wacky weather last week in a large portion of the United States. I know you did in Tennessee as well, right, Susan? It was a little bit chilly where you were.
It was really chilly. We had a
Yeah.
full snow week, and which
Mhm.
we were still teaching, but we had a really fun snow week and got to get out and play with my daughters in the snow. So that was really great.
That's nice. It was a little too cold here for me to want to go out and play in the snow. So hi, El Paso. Maria from El Paso, nice to see you. Boulder, Colorado, with 9 new inches of snow, fresh snow in Boulder, Colorado. But you guys are used to that up there, so I hope you're enjoying it. I've seen enough snow for the season, so I'm good. I'm good. I'm done. Uh, looking forward to the Texas summer. So yeah, okay. Well, it looks like we have a good crowd joining us today, which is great because the bigger the crowd, the more interaction and the more fun it is. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. It is just about time to officially get started. So today we're talking about minimizing teacher talk and maximizing student output. This is specifically for secondary English learners who are in a virtual setup for teaching right now. Now I know, Susan, you're getting ready to go back to in-person at least part of the time, is that right?
Teachers the whole time. So we were supposed to go back this week, and then we had a boil water advisory. So we're going back on Monday. All teachers in the building, but students have a choice to stay home or come to the.
Okay, so you sounds like very common across the country. There will be a portion of students who will opt to stay virtual, so we need to know how to get them engaged and producing language and participating. So we're really looking forward to this presentation today. Let me officially introduce everybody to Susan. So Susan Patterson is a high school ESL teacher and peer coach for her school district. She has been teaching ESL for 10 years and coaching for 3 years. She holds a master's degree in instructional leadership with an emphasis in pre-K through 12 ESL. She shares strategies for teaching emergent bilinguals on her blog, elllady.com, and creates courses for teachers who are looking to strengthen their ESL strategies in their classrooms through My EL Mentor. When not teaching and coaching, she loves to read, write, and cook healthy foods that her family does not eat. Sounds like my family and many families out there. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. I'm going to let you take it from here, but I will be popping in and out as necessary to assist and facilitate and let you know what's going on in the chat and all that stuff. So, all right,
Great.
Susan, take it away.
All righty. Let's see here. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right.
All right, looks good. Everything looks good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm just so happy to be here, first of all. I'm so excited and I can't stop smiling. So let me just kind of jump right in. So today I'll be sharing with you all strategies that I've been exploring in my own teaching practice and also through peer coaching with some of my high school teachers in the district that I teach. So, and I'm not we don't use Zoom in our district. So this is like a whole new platform. All right, here we go. Okay. So before we dive into the slides, as we go through them, I'll also be sharing some ways that I scaffold my content in order to boost my students' output. So this is one way that I do this through annotating the objectives and also by color coding. And with my newcomers, I like to also add in translations. Um, Another thing that is totally fun to do is to pick out a virtual background that matches your lesson. So for example, I might use a background of a grape field for when we are reading our text about Cesar Chavez, which we're currently doing. So students can really visualize aspects from our lessons when there's a picture right in front of them. I had a background today, but since I don't use Zoom, when I uploaded it in Zoom, it didn't look right. So, but in Teams, I mean, it works fine. So I do have like a background of some grape fields, and it's really kind of like a fun way for them to see it. So let's look at our objective. So I can analyze strategies to minimize teacher talk and maximize student output by reviewing examples with visuals. So this is how I annotate my objectives. I like to put little pictures in with it. And again, I put translations for my newcomers. I have Arabic speakers and Spanish speakers, so I'll put both of them in there.
Susan,
Uh-huh.
I have a quick question. Those little clouds that you use to annotate, what are those called? Is there a specific like app or software you use for those?
No, it's in, so I use Google Slides and it's I think you just click add animation. No, wait, I think you have to add the shape first and then add animation. I have to like be physically doing it to tell you, but it's in Google Slides and it's you put the shape and do an animation with.
Okay, so it's just like the shapes in Google. All
Yeah,
right,
so
I'm
you
gonna
can
call
do
it.
different, like you don't have to do the bubbles. I think there's different shapes you can choose.
Okay, perfect. And we have some people in the chat who are commenting with their own experiences to answer each other's questions. Make sure you're choosing all panelists and attendees in the chat so everybody can see what you have to say. Thank you for that, Susan.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
let you get
welcome.
back to it.
Okay, sure. All right. Okay, so the session today is broken up into two parts, teacher actions and student tasks. So this is going to be an action-packed session because honestly, one of my things I need to work on in planning is not putting too much information. But I always end up wanting to cover all the things. So let's see all the things we can pack in today. So our teacher actions are to understand input and output, looking at gradual release of responsibility, scaffolds, and mini lessons. And student tasks, we're going to look at some annotations, one pagers, podcasts, accountable talk and discussions, and some digital tools at the end. So let's start with a little chat. So we are all teachers here, and we can be honest. We are all probably struggling with some of the same things during virtual or hybrid teaching. So in the chat, respond with a 1, 2, or 3. 1 for my students engage with my lessons. 2, my students are disengaged during my lessons. And 3, it depends on the day, to be honest. So take a minute to put in the chat just the 1, 2, or 3. You don't have to write the sentences out.
I'm seeing mostly threes. It depends on the day.
Yeah, and I want to say that that is me too, because I'm not an elementary teacher, and I feel like elementary age students probably are always chatty. That's what I imagine. Because my 5-year-old, I've seen her do virtual learning, and I've seen their class, and it's a lot chattier than my high school students. So with our high school students, it's like it kind of depends on like how they're feeling that day. What time did they go to bed last night? How long were they chatting with their friends? Like how late did they work? So for me too, it depends on the day, and I'm always kind of like struggling, well, some days struggling more than others with how to keep them engaged. So um here are some questions to ask yourself. Be honest if you said yes, this happens to us all, I promise. These are definitely things I have felt, and some of my teachers I peer coach have felt. So when virtual teaching, do you, I'm laughing because these are all things that I feel, and I ask myself, ask a question and get silence. Do you feel like you're just teaching to a screen? Do you imagine your students on the other side texting friends or asleep in their beds? Because sometimes I do. And we are at our school, we don't require our students to keep the cameras on. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, are you there? Not sure. Um, so let's look, after thinking about those questions, let's look at this image from the distance learning playbook. So think of where your students land on this continuum. Are they more active or passive? Are they engaged or disengaged? And sometimes the way I can gauge or I can tell if my students are engaged and ready to produce some great language for me is if they are asking me questions. So even if it's just a clarifying one or if it's in a different language, um, then I know, okay, they're following along. They're engaged somewhat. So are they participating in your lesson? Are they investing in the lesson? And are they driving their own learning? So those are kind of things that you'll see if they are more active. Um, And of course, if they are disengaged, then they are withdrawing, avoiding, and maybe even disrupting, and maybe doing some of those things from the previous slide, not answering you or responding. So for disengagement, we're not necessarily referring to if students' cameras are on or not. I think it's important to reflect on our virtual teaching, and ask ourselves if we are engaging in too much teacher talk and if it is affecting our students' output. So this may or may not be the case, but disengagement can lead us to more teacher talk to fill up the space. Sometimes it's awkward silence and we feel the need to fill it up. And we are also content experts in high school. So it's very easy for us to talk about our content we teach. So if we don't have output from our students, it leads to the inability to assess if they are mastering our standards or contents, or I'm sorry, and objectives. It leads to less engagement with the target language and leads to more teacher talk. Or I think it's important to reflect on, are these a result of too much teacher talk? So a lot of things to reflect on with our virtual teaching. Um, so let's listen to Mary Ellen Vogt talk about teacher talk. While listening, I want you to think about some tasks that we can use virtually to get students interacting with each other. Or maybe what do you do in your class to get students interacting with each other? And also, how can we be intentional about planning for these tasks? So let's watch this little clip here.
In the research literature on classroom interaction, it has been found that teacher talk occupies anywhere from 70 to 80% of all interactions in the classroom. And the other 20 to 30% of the time is shared among all the other students in the class. For English learners in the classroom, having to share the other 20% with all the other kids is not going to give very much time for these youngsters to acquire English. What we advocate and what we know from research is that we must provide a greater amount of time in which students are speaking with each other and interacting with the teacher and among themselves. Now, this will not happen unless teachers carefully plan lessons where students are interacting with each other throughout the lesson and throughout the day. One of the ways that teachers can promote interaction in the classroom is through incorporating a variety of activities that require cooperative learning. And by this, I don't mean just putting kids in groups, but really structuring discussion for them, having them be required to complete a task together in which they have to talk and work and share with each other, all builds interaction opportunities.
All right. So with that video, here are some guiding questions as we go through the slides. So um, strategies. What strategies can help us monitor our teacher talk? And what tasks can we use to get students creating output and interacting with us and each other? So that's what we are going to explore. Okay, so our first teacher action we are going to look at is understanding the language domains for input and output. So this may seem simple, like you're like, okay, Susan, I know what the language domains are. I know what this is. But I think knowing these and also being intentional with them are the keys to plan our lessons better for output. So we know our language domains are speaking, writing, reading, and listening. The output domains are speaking and writing. So we need to keep this in mind when we are planning. We want to have a domain to focus on, but it doesn't mean we ignore the other domains. It just means we are intentional, I think that's the second, about our tasks related to that domain. After we choose one to focus on, then we think about how we want students to produce understanding through speaking or writing, or a little bit of both. Okay, so let's do a quick check for understanding. this is a chat waterfall, and I actually learned it from one of the sessions in Saddleback. So before the chat waterfall begins, you're going to type out your answer, but don't press enter yet. So you're going to take a minute and start typing the sentence stem and your answer. So the sentence stem is the two domains for language output are. So don't press enter yet. Go ahead and type your answer out. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our chat waterfall. Go ahead and press enter, and let's see your answers. I'm going to open the chat here. Let's see.
Your chat window is covering your screen, Susan.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, yay, I see some answers. Oh, I love these complete sentences. The two domains for language output are speaking and writing. Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, good. So, thank you for your answers and your engagement. And I want to point out before we go on to the next slide, how easy it is to even fill space here as students think of their answer for the chat waterfall to begin. So it was kind of hard for me to sit here and be quiet because I automatically want to like just kind of chat, you know, and fill up space. I have to intentionally say, okay, don't talk. I'm going to sit here. And so this small amount of teacher talk, if I was talking while you guys were typing, would affect your output. So they need time and silence to think before answering. It's really tempting to fill in the silence, I know, but I think the more you practice being silent while they work is helpful. So let's go on here. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so now that we know what domains are for output and input, let's look at an example 9th grade English language objective. So my main domain here is reading, but I need to ask myself, how are they going to show me that they understand? So this doesn't necessarily have to be a cut and dry speaking and writing task. And whatever verb or domain I choose, again, it doesn't mean I'm ignoring my other domain. So I try to get my students swirling every day. So let's read our objective. It says, I can read and annotate Romeo and Juliet to analyze how characters develop by reading in chunks with L1 support and visuals. So what will the language output be? So in this case, it's going to be their annotations. Annotations can be them writing sentences, you know, off in the margins, or it can be just words, or even just highlighting and underlining. So that is still output. Even them highlighting and underlining is still output. And I want to add too that yes, we teach Romeo and Juliet to our 9th graders. And it is a fun time. It is an interesting and fun time. So when we're trying to balance our input and output, it's important to be aware of our teacher output, because too much teacher output or teacher talk means too much language input for our students. So what does this mean for our students and especially our newcomers? Can they produce output for you if they are overwhelmed with teacher talk? And I want to add here too that if you are teaching newcomers, your teacher talk might be less than if you're teaching an advanced proficiency level student. So an advanced student can handle more teacher talk. So a balanced amount of teacher talk and the correct scaffolds in the lesson means that we are giving students more opportunities to shine. So providing opportunities for you to pause and have them discuss, even if it's in their home language, along with making the content comprehensible with scaffolds, give our students great opportunities for output, and it sets them up for success. All right, so here's our teacher action 2 to use gradual release of responsibility when planning. All right, so this is a strategy that started as an element that our teacher, or not our teacher, our principal wanted to see in our lesson plans. And at first I was like, oh, not another thing like I have to learn and I have to do. But I was so happy. I quickly felt like this was great for our emergent bilinguals because it balanced input and output. So in this graph, you can see that at the top, it moves from the teacher responsibility down to independent learning. So it really is a step-by-step way to get your students working with your content successfully on their own because you're modeling and scaffolding it along the way as a whole group, and the I do and the we do down to partners or small groups, and ultimately to doing the task or skill alone. So it was a great way for me to organize my lessons in that way. So I think this is really important for our newcomers. Let's take a look at this note from Stephen Krashen. So let's read it and let's think, what does this mean for our newcomers? So I'm going to read it out loud because I know some of us might be driving, because that's what I like to do, is listen to my webinars while I'm driving. So it says, there are numerous studies that confirm that we can develop extremely high levels of language and literacy competence without any language production at all. So what does this mean for our newcomers? It means to me that output may not necessarily be speaking or writing, or it might just look a little bit different for them. It doesn't mean that they aren't learning if they're silent. It also doesn't mean that they can't produce some form of output for you. So they may not be writing you narratives, and there are ways certainly to do that with scaffolding, but there's other ways, and here's some examples, other ways for them to show you output. So some other ways are annotating and highlighting, gestures, repeating after you, circling, sequencing, categorizing, creating images, such as in Canva. I really love Canva. Or creating a model or exhibit for you. So this is still output. And I want to share with you this visual, and it might not be as clear as if you went to his website on your own to see this, but this is a visual from Ton of Empowering L's, and there is a link to this in the PowerPoint, but this visual is really worth to go check out on your own, because he gives strategies for comprehensible input and what their output might be based on their proficiency level. So I feel like this is a great visual to refer to when you're lesson planning, when you're thinking in terms of input and output.
Susan, I'm going to jump in here because
Yeah.
people are really excited about this visual. We dropped a link to the slide handouts in the chat, and we will do so again momentarily. So in that, when you open up that link, you're going to find Susan's slides, and you're also going to find a document with links to various images such as this one. So all of that is provided in the chat. And I also wanted to add, in terms of output, we had somebody suggest for newcomers, storyboards with pictures is something that they like to do as well, which is a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So if there are any other questions about slide handouts or diagrams or links, we're providing that link in the chat for you. All right, Susan, back to you.
Okay. honestly too, like I kept thinking that I wanted to fit in storyboards. I love storyboard that, and having them put in captions. And I didn't put it in this presentation, but it is one like resource that I really love, especially for our students, because they can like with storyboard that they can put in visuals and kind of change it how they want. But anyways, that's for another day. Um, so we are on to teacher action 3, scaffold. So before students can give you output, correct scaffolds should be in place. So if the content isn't comprehensible, output will be harder to achieve. The scaffolds ensure our students can reach the grade level standards. So I'm not watering down their content. Yes, we're reading Romeo and Juliet, and I am putting in those scaffolds to really help them achieve the same standards and objectives that our other students are doing. Okay, so let's do a quick check here. If you feel comfortable unmuting, you can raise your virtual hand and we will call on someone to share their answer. So it says respond with this sentence stem. Scaffolds I use in my classroom to make grade level content comprehensible are. So if you are brave, you can raise your virtual hand and share your ideas. And honestly, this is like when I'm teaching my students, I'm like waiting and there's silence. And so what I really like to use, and it's on the screen here, is I use wheelofnames.com, and there's also flippity.net. I haven't used it yet, but I've heard it's like a really great resource. So it's a good way to pose a question to the whole group and then call on a specific student. So you know that like, okay, I'm not just going to let the same student answer the questions, because there's always that one in the class that's like gonna answer and leave everyone off the hook, right? So Wheel of Names is really great. Liz, do we have any hands up? I'm
I
not
was
sure.
just waiting and we just now got a couple of attendees with hands up. I'm scrolling through to see if I can find them and then I'll pick one to unmute. So
Awesome.
give me just 1 second here.
Okay.
Okay, for some reason, I am not seeing the hands. I know I can see that the hands are raised, but I can't see the person's name.
No.
So that's unfortunate. But you know what? I'm not giving up yet. If you have raised your hand, can you go ahead to the chat and say, I raised my hand? And that way we know who it is.
I see someone said Flippity is awesome. I need to try Flippity. I've heard great things.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Um, Gerald, let's go ahead and allow you to talk. Thank you for being brave. And Joanna too. You know what? Let's give each of them a moment to share with us.
Hear it.
All right, Gerald, you should be ready to go.
I don't hear Gerald.
I don't either. All right. Okay. Joanna, we're going to try you and then we'll just go from there. We tried. All right. All right. Let's see. Last chance. Joanna and Gerald, anybody going to share? All right. I think we're having some tech issues here. So let's just move
Oh.
on. That's all right. Something's not working. Thanks,
I
Gerald and Joanna.
see an answer in the chat. Um, Aylin said, scaffolds I use in my classroom to make grade level content comprehensible are text with multiple reading levels. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Especially, yeah, if you have a class of different language levels in there. At our school, we're kind of lucky and they're kind of in classes based on their proficiency level, but yeah, that's a great one. Okay, well, let's move on. So I have a scaffolds checklist, and this checklist is on my website. If you want to download it, it's free. It's in the freebie section. And there should be a link in what Liz was saying for that document, the links for the slides. So high yield scaffolds in the virtual space are visual, sentence stems and starters, gestures, facial expressions, TPR, immersive reader, translations in PowerPoint. So these are ones that I could not live without virtual teaching. These are not all of the ones in the checklist, obviously, but these are great ones that I would use, every day. So modeling, yeah. And I think it was Carly Spina in her session when she was saying she comprehensively inputs her face. And I laugh because I'm like, I totally do that. Like I make crazy facial expressions and I probably look like nuts on the other side of the screen, but definitely helps as a scaffold. So, and I want to share this other cheat sheet with you. So it's another way to think of your scaffolding along with thinking about the student's proficiency level. So this cheat sheet organizes some scaffolding options by the stage of gradual release. And this is also on my website for free if you want to download it. For example, annotating the objectives and doing a mini lesson are things I have in the I do and also the we do. Because for well, we'll get into mini lessons. But with mini lessons, we do a little bit of we do in there. So, and here are some other tips from Jana, and I don't want to say her last name wrong, Echeverria. We'll just say Jana, for making our content comprehensible. These are some basic things we can do and our content teachers can do. So you can recommend your content teachers to do these simple things and it helps a lot. They are to adjust your speech, explain things clearly, and use a variety of techniques or scaffolds for students. So using some of those scaffolding cheat sheets will help you do that. And I like to just have them printed out like near my desk or on my desktop. Okay, so our teacher action 4 are use mini lessons. So again, this template's on my website. Go download it. It's free. It's a way to keep your mini lesson ideas organized. So I typically organize my mini lessons into 4 steps. They are to connect the skill or concept with something you've already learned, explicitly teach the skill or concept, practice the skill or concept, and then remind the students to use it in the lesson. So mini lessons should take about 10 to 15 minutes and be focused on only one skill, strategy, or concept. So I have this timer up here for as a reminder to time yourself. This is a great way to monitor our teacher talk. For you to time yourself for the I do portion when you're explaining something, or you can also time like the portion that they're practicing. So for example, maybe you do 5 minutes explicit instruction, and then maybe the other 5 or 10 are for them to practice and discuss the skill or concept. So you can insert a little timer like this from YouTube to keep yourself on track. Oh, oh my goodness. So you can insert a timer like this and it keeps you on track and it shows the students how much time they have left. Maybe don't use that one because the end is a little obnoxious. Okay. So here's an example of one of my mini lessons. In step 1, I reminded students of a previous text that we had read with the infinitive in it, and I showed them an example sentence. So step 2 here is of me explicitly teaching infinitives, and It is nothing fancy or innovative. It's just me explicitly showing them what it is and having students repeat after me, because I had some lower level, lower intermediate level students in there. So I always have them repeat, really, just so that I know that they're there and they're with me. So I'm going to play this for you on my little mini lesson. And this is, again, just the explicitly teaching part. This is just step 2. So here we go. Mini lesson, okay? So we are learning today about infinitives and, oh y'all, what happened? Hang on a second. Sorry, guys.
And we still have that gray box over part of your slides there. There you go. Perfect. That's perfect. Looks great.
All right, looks good. Again, I'm not a Zoomer, so okay, here we go. I think this should work. Mini lesson, okay? So we are learning today about infinitives and infinitive phrases. So I will read and you listen, okay? An infinitive is formed from the word to, together with the base form or the present tense of a verb. Okay, let's repeat this together, okay? So let's repeat. An infinitive.
An infinitive
I don't hear Leo or Joseph. Is formed
is
from the word
from the verb
to,
to,
together with
together with
the base form,
the base form,
present tense
present tense
of a verb.
of a verb.
Okay, good. So here's some examples. Let's repeat these, but I need everyone together. So repeat: to skate,
To skate,
to write,
to write,
to shimmer,
to shimmer,
to see,
to see,
to stop,
to stop,
to use.
to use.
All right. Thank you, girls. I didn't hear the boys, but thank you, girls. Okay. So in Spanish, it's a little bit similar form. Do we know how? Okay. So at the end, you can tell I'm trying to make connections to Spanish. I like to try to connect the Spanish structures and cognates to help my students make connections. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but there are definitely things you can catch on to as you teach and translate with Spanish, at least. Arabic, not so much. But so that is my little explicitly teaching part. And then we moved on to step 3. We practiced a little together, and they practiced in a Nearpod Collaborate board as well. So for step 4, I told them how we would use it in the lesson. And as we practiced, I made sure to color code the parts of speech for them and also gave them a formula for when they wrote their own sentences. So I didn't for this Collaborate board in Nearpod, but I'll frequently ask them to add in a visual along with their sentences. So I love Nearpod for that. Okay. So let's look at the teacher actions review. We talked about the language domains, gradual release of responsibility, scaffolds, and mini lessons. Here's a couple more tips. The 10 to 2 rule, which should actually be a little bit shorter for some of our emergent bilinguals. Be patient. Don't move on to the next thing until you've heard them respond. So set that expectation that if students don't respond in writing or speaking, or gesturing or whatever the way you want them to respond, you're not just going to move on to the next thing. So they will gradually get the point that you're going to wait for them. It might be awkward, but you're going to wait. And you'll probably want to fill in the space with teacher talk. Don't do it. Let them think and use a timer. So trying some of these slowly and in small steps will get you and your students where you want to be. Okay, so let's move on to the student tasks. So when we're creating, we are engaged. Let's think about that. Think about when you are doing something creative. Maybe it's painting or journaling or cooking. How engaged are you? Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Put a thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat. Put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. How engaged are you when you're being creative, when you're making something? Agree or disagree? Thumbs up, agree. Okay, I see in the chat. Yeah, we're engaged. And hopefully we're so engaged that we don't want to look at our phones, right? We're into it. So, yeah. All right. So our student actions are focusing on getting them creating. So they are giving you some form of output. So for speaking, we'll look at breakout room discussions and accountable talk and make it a podcast. And for writing, we'll look at annotating and one-pagers. You may not see, for example, a narrative writing assignment for output, but there are writing opportunities in these assignments. Students get to use scaffolds with these assignments to show you their ideas and what they learn. So before we get into some of the specific examples, here's some general tips. First, explicitly tell students that you want to see what was covered in the mini lesson and model it for them. So the tips are first, model, practice the discourse ahead of time. Make sure the sentence stems, frames, word banks are available where students can readily use them. Document the discussion, so hit record. I just started doing this. I have been having them record, or I'll hit record before they do their discussions. And that gives me peace of mind that I can go back and listen and see what they were talking about, and it holds them accountable as well. Some of the other big ones for me have been having them collaborate on something together when they go in, and maybe assigning them roles and questions before they go in to do their discussions. So that kind of gives them a purpose. All right. For some writing domain tips, again, explicitly tell the students that you want to see what was covered in the mini lesson and model it for them. Some others are to, again, make sure that the stems or frames or word banks are available. Use Google Jamboard is great. I think a lot of people know about that. We use Microsoft Teams, and the Collaborate board is great. And the ability to draw is so important for our newcomer and intermediate level students, really for all students. I think everyone has an ability to draw, and it really helps the solidify learning. It helps them show you their understanding of the content that you taught. Okay, so let's look at some examples because the time's really flying. It really is. So let's look at some examples of high school assignments and what mini lessons and scaffolds we can use with our students to help them be successful. So here's an example 9th grade English prompt. Okay, here we go. This one is read and annotate The Seventh Man by Haruki Murakami. Highlight the central idea in yellow, key details in green, and circle the vocabulary words. And for our mini lesson, we might talk about independent clauses before annotating, since we'll be using sentence frames with this. And the text also has some good examples of this. So we always want to choose something and teach it in context with the task. For our scaffolds, along with the sentence frames, students can draw their understanding, and they're also giving you output by highlighting and circling. Here's a real finished assignment from my students. I think this was in November. So I always use this great resource from Kate Kinsella called the Academic Language Function Toolkit for Accountable Talk. And that's like the little screenshot you see on the left side. So I will either post the language I want them using in Teams, or I'll put it in the chat for them. And I'm always like thinking when I'm creating their task, what accountable talk do I want them to engage with and what will it be around? So for example, I want them to share here what they wrote for their sentence frames and use language for soliciting a response and paraphrasing while they do it. So, and I just really had to share this annotation example activity from Esther Park. And it's an easy way that she's made to annotate with drag and drop on Google Slides. And I thought it was really cute too. So you can go, her website is on this slide. You can go if you want to try it out. So that's another way they can give you output is dragging and dropping like that. That is still output from them. Okay, so here's our second example from a biology assignment. It is to create a one-pager that compares and contrasts a plant with an animal cell, include 2 pictures, a caption explaining each, and a summary. So there's the word bank, and I'm not going to say all these because I might not say them right because I'm not a biology person. So for example, animal and plant cell, lysosomes, cell wall, and some others that I'm not sure I'm going to say right. And then it says use one of these sentence frames. So there's some language for comparing and contrasting. And again, that's in that academic language function toolkit, just a screenshot of it. So our mini lesson might be some vocabulary instruction before students start their one-pager to make sure they understand the words required for the assignment. And again, our scaffolds are sentence frames and stems, word bank, and the ability to insert visuals in a Jamboard or Microsoft Teams notebook. And for vocabulary, I love to do Margarita Calderon's 7-step vocabulary. That's one of my favorites. Here's a completed biology one-pager example. So as you can see, the student compared and contrasted plant and animal cells nicely with the visuals, words from the bank, and the sentences in the little post-it. And those sentences they used from the accountable talk, the academic language function toolkit. That is directly from that. So just by providing those scaffolds, this is a pretty nice one-pager, I thought. All right. Okay, so we're going to do an example together. Let's read this prompt for a US history class. It says, we have been reading The Immigrant Contribution by John F. Kennedy. Interview someone for a podcast episode who may have immigrated to the United States or knows someone who has. Discover what they have contributed to our nation. Okay. So let's answer in the chat what you might teach in a mini lesson and what scaffold you might use. Think about your own students' proficiency levels. So here are your sentence stems. Based on the prompt and my students' language proficiencies, my mini lesson would be about, and then the second one is scaffolds for students I serve might be. So let's take a minute or two to put your answers in the chat. You can go ahead and just type them in.
Susan, can you go back one slide? I think
Oh, yes.
some people want to see the assignment as they're thinking about their answers.
You know, I thought about that too. I thought like that's what I would do with my students. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm seeing some really good answers in the chat.
I was just opening it up. Let's see here. Yeah, how to use the technology they'll need. Yeah, that's definitely question types and how to ask them. Interview. Okay, so the mini lesson would be about interview questions, how to conduct an interview, to use the text. So I'm seeing some similar things. Creating a script. Oh, they're going so fast, I can't really keep up. Sentence stems for interview. Yeah. So, okay. Using who was or who is questioning. Yeah, these are all really good. Having them practice together first. Yes, big yes, big yes. Brainstorming interview questions. Yeah. So I love those. Let me go back to the other slide here. I think those are great things to start with. And then, yeah, once you think about their language proficiencies, then you can think, okay, what are the language structures I want to focus on? What's the vocabulary I want to focus on for my students specifically? So yeah, those are great. I see that we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to go to the next slide. We're kind of wrapping it up here. We're quickly touching on tech to try. So I know there's obviously an abundance now of digital tools we can use to get students creating. Here's some that I personally love. I love Nearpod, Flipgrid, Jamboard, and I love Canva. Here's a little Canva example I have on the side. This was my example for my students. I didn't want to show you, their faces, but this is one of my examples that we did right when quarantine started. So it was fun. So we did a 10 things that are important to me during quarantine are, and they can, drag in those visuals. So I think other things that people have recommended are Padlet, Classic, Pear Deck, TikTok. So I think the key is to pick a couple that you love and not try to do all of them, because it will lead to overwhelm, and we're already very overwhelmed. I see there's a comment about Canva. There is a free educator profile that you can get. It's free. So yeah, and they have all kinds of PowerPoint slides that are really neat. So I want to end on this. It says our emergent bilinguals can create great content. Just give them the support they need and plenty of opportunities to let them shine. So I know a lot of us want to be there for our students and make sure they have the right scaffolds and hold their hands, because I certainly do. And I will advocate for them, any day, all day. But it's also important, I think, to remember that they can do it. So let them fly alone, let them try it, and sit back and let them show you what they can do. And they will surprise you in the best way possible. They really will. So here is, after the session's over, I would love to hear your own strategies of minimizing teacher talk and maximizing output, and maybe hearing what you guys, what activities and tasks you guys do in your classroom, so that maybe I can try some in mine. So there's a link here. The link is also in that, what Liz referred to in that other document with all the links. You can go here, record, and share with us. And thank you so much for letting me share some of my ideas with you. And again, my website is here, where you can get all those little freebie cheat sheets. You can also find information about an online course I created called My EL Mentor, Creating a Language-Rich Classroom. And I really look forward to connecting with everyone on social media. Like, it's one of my favorite things, and I learned so much. So feel free to send me a message and ask any questions if you have any. And I look forward to meeting everyone.
We definitely have a few questions and comments.
Okay.
So let's do this here. I want to make sure everybody knows what is coming up next week on Saddleback webinar. So next week, this is a really interesting topic. I know many of you joining us today are teachers of English learners, and perhaps what you don't consider is that our deaf and hard of hearing students are also English learners, and many of the same teaching strategies and techniques can apply perhaps to students who are deaf and or hard of hearing. But the students who are deaf or hard of hearing have some unique challenges that perhaps your students do not have. And so Kimberly Sanzo from Language First will be joining us to talk about language deprivation. And I just think it's fascinating, and it's going to be a really useful webinar in terms of how we think about what language is and language acquisition. So if you are interested in this topic, or if you have a deaf program on your campus, spread the word. This is going to be a really great session, and we do have accommodations. We will have an ASL interpreter and live captioning for this event. You can register on our website, or when you receive the email prompting you to do so. We would love to have you join us. And of course, if you need your Saddleback High-Low books digitally, you can find more information on that using our on-demand webinar, which is on our YouTube channel, or you can reach out to us for further information on our new ebook platform. And in the few minutes we have remaining, I just wanted to tackle a couple questions that we had come in. Let me open up the chat here and make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So somebody wanted to know if Canva was free, and there is a free version of it for educators. We already talked about that. On your tech tools to try slide, somebody wanted to know which of those besides Flipgrid would be ideal for speaking practice.
Oh, yeah. So Nearpod and ClassKick have options. I don't use ClassKick, but I know this from my colleagues, but like they have options where you can add into the slide an element for them to press record and speak.
Excellent. And then somebody mentioned, Isabel mentioned that she's trying a TikTok project for the first time. So I just wanted to say good luck. Let us know how that goes. I hear more and more teachers are trying to integrate TikTok into their lessons as much as possible. Sarita asked, can you please post the link once more? I think she means for the next webinar. I'm not sure. Let me go back here just in case. And there we go. Okay. So yeah, Isabel, good luck with that TikTok project. I can't wait to hear how it goes. And if you know anybody who's like an expert on using TikTok in instruction for their English learners, send them my way. I would love to have a webinar on that. I think that would be so great. Oh, the link for today. Okay, Sarita would like the link for today, for today's handouts. They will post that again in the chat for you. And then somebody wanted to know, when you're doing annotations with your students and that sort of output, and you're doing that virtually, are they doing that on your screen, on their screen? Is it like a shared document? How does that work?
That's a good question. So there's a couple ways that I've tried it, and I've seen other teachers try it, but I've been doing it in Nearpod, and you can also do it this way, I believe, in ClassKick. And I think Jamboard too. So I think what you do is you just upload a picture, like a screenshot of the text as the background. And like specifically for Nearpod, it's uploaded, they see it, and they can draw on it. They can add text on it. I think for ClassKick, you can upload the whole document and they can mark on it. If you do Microsoft Teams, you could put it in, I like to do it in the Collaborate board, but you can also share it to all their notebooks, and they can do it in their own notebook too. So, but my favorite is to do it in Nearpod. It's just you have to do a screenshot of the part that you want them to annotate, which might be a pain for some people.
And Regina and Catherine say that Pear Deck also allows for annotation, and it is amazing. So thank you for sharing that. Well, looks like we have one more. Cami is another great tool. Yes, if you don't, if you've not checked out Cami, check that out as well. And here's the last question. I'm going to open up this question to everybody to share your experience and your thoughts, because this is something common. when you have emergent bilinguals in your class, how do you help overcome the embarrassment that they might feel about speaking? Because that's going to be a barrier to participating. So what are some things that you do with your own students to help them to feel comfortable? And Susan, feel free to chime in here while we're seeing what people have to say.
So I'm interested in what everyone else says, but for me personally, I like to think of like what are things that I can do or what are things that the teacher can do to make the student feel more comfortable and to lower the affective filter for them and make them feel a little less anxious. Um, so some things that I do is I'm like I get kind of silly and I don't take myself seriously. I I do not care what I look like on the other side of the screen. So adding in like a sense of humor and being silly goes a long way. And I think too, trying to use their language. So my Spanish is like awful, and I'm not embarrassed with my newcomers because we're kind of at the same stage of language efficiency. So I think showing them that you're willing to go out on a limb and like try their language and sound silly opens it up for them, to do the same. But um, as far as like content teaching or content teacher classes, like if they're in biology, it's really hard for me to to say like, hey, you have to speak up in biology. Your teacher thinks you're not participating because they're scared, right? They're nervous. So I've recommended to like add a separate channel for the ESL students. So add a separate breakout room for them and then hop in over there and talk with them, or you can pull in a bilingual mentor to help translate, but providing a safe space I think is helpful.
We also have some great contributions in the chat too. Choral responses for building confidence, building relationships, letting them know it's a safe place. Fun visual affirmations to show my appreciation of their effort. Kelly Lee, that's a good one. Breakout rooms to practice reading aloud. Um, Send the students sentence starters in the chat to get them started. Asking them, do you want me to help you? I read and they repeat. Okay. Telling them, just setting the expectation that mistakes are an important part of learning.
Mhm.
Great. Share with my students that they know so much in their native language and that I too need more time when trying to express the same info in a new language. Yeah, for sure. And somebody here said, making sure that they understand that some of these speaking assignments are for the teacher's eyes only, that sort of helps them to feel less anxious about giving it a try. So thank you for sharing that, Becky. Looks like we have a couple of more. The silent period is a part of the acculturation process due to stress. Absolutely,
Mhm.
Marie, absolutely. Create an environment of risk taking, allowing newcomers to communicate in their first language. Um, and then moving into translanguaging is an effective way, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for your contributions to this conversation, because I think that's a really important question that was asked, and
Yeah.
helping to create that environment is really important. So thank you so very much. And thank you to you, Susan, for sharing all of these great ideas and in some cases reminding us of probably what we already know, but forgot because we just get so stressed out with everything that we have to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's so helpful to know that like that we're not alone. And yeah, so we know some of these things and we can be more intentional about them, I guess, in our learning.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And Saddleback is wherever you are, whatever your favorite social media platform is, you will find us there. Reach out to us, say hello. We would love to continue this conversation on Instagram, Twitter, or wherever you happen to hang out. And we will hopefully see everybody next week for our webinar on language deprivation. Thank you, Susan. And thank you to you, everybody, for what you do every day. And we will see you next time. Take care.